Hello everyone, Edain here, and welcome back to the Edain Mod Battle School, where today we're talking about ranged units. And, there's a lot of ranged units to talk about. Obviously, I have got a lot of the ranged units here. Not all of them, but the main thing I want to be talking about here is the different damage types that every single ranged unit in the game can do. This is not including siege units, because siege units all do the same type of damage. They do siege damage. There is actually one range unit here that does do siege damage, but we'll get into that later on. We're going to start with the most basic damage types and then go into the more exotic ones as time goes on. So, before we actually talk about damage types, I actually need to say one thing, or two things. Attack range and attack speed are incredibly important to understand to get the most out of every single unit. If you want to see exact numbers for the attack range and attack speed of every single unit, look at the Edain Mod Fandom Wiki. It has literally every single number you will need to get perfect knowledge on everything that comes from every single one of these units. And obviously there are some units that have abilities like the Yeoman of Rohan that can give them bonus attack range. There's Lothlorien that has longbows that gives them bonus attack range and vision. There's the Iron Hills crossbowmen that reduce their attack range for a massive armor boost. And there are actually cases where a reduced attack range is good if you're playing in a blob, like how I normally play, to protect them from being charged by cavalry. And then, obviously, there's also attack speed buffs from things like the Men of Kharndoom. They have their focus barrage. Over time, if they shoot enough things at enough times, they just shoot even faster. There's Mortal Orc Archers, I think, if they get a Overseer, can attack faster. I might be wrong on that. They might get something else instead. And then, obviously, there's things that have just basic abilities, like unexpected salvos for attacking certain things. There's extra attack and vision range from the skirmish formation of the Eregion archers. Gondor gets the damage and speed reduction. Crossbowmen get the attack speed increase. That's another attack speed boost. And then there's a few more exotic units that have more exotic abilities that are basically better if you use them in the right fashion. So let's start by talking what most archers have, well, all archers have in the game. And that means all of these units here. Every single unit here you see that can fire an arrow or a bolt, technically, the Uruk-hai crossbowmen, not including the Rohirrim archers though. These guys are different. We're not talking about these yet. Every ground unit that holds a bow or a crossbow does pierce damage. And pierce damage is potentially the worst damage type in the game. Now, it's a bit difficult to say it is the worst, but the point of it being classified as what I think the worst damage type is that most units have an inherent resistance to pierce damage. Even archers have an inherent pierce resistance. But the point of that is to make it so if a unit of archers gets a damage boost, it feels more impactful in that moment, but then it still doesn't do as much in the end because the armor of the units is better. But all of these archer units can get a secondary damage type, except for these guys. These get something different. But every single archer here, you can see Gondor archers, Philian Rangers, Eregion, Yeoman, Mordor archers, Kharndoom archers, Elven archers. They all get a type of arrow upgrade. But before we go into them, I just want to say another thing about pierce damage. The best thing that pierce damage is good against is monsters. Single target entities suck against this type of damage because all that damage is being like perfectly honed in onto single entities. Against large entity armies that have bigger health pools, do not use pierce damage. Against Mordor and goblins that have low health, these archers are still fine because the damage is being split out pretty evenly between every single entity. It's random what every single entity is shooting at, but with a smaller entity that has more health, 435 damage. If every single archer was doing 20 damage to an archer, that means all it would take is 12 shots to kill a single one of those archers. Instead of, say, 4 arrows killing each of these, that's 20 entities. 4 arrows each, that's 80 arrows to kill this unit. And this unit only requires, if I did the math correctly, it is 60. So that's actually 20 less arrows. That's 1 1/3 volleys less to kill off a Rivendell archer unit than it is a orc archer unit. And also, that orc archer unit can get some decent buffs as well, and give debuffs out through things like ring wraiths. But anyway, let's not go too much into buffing and debuffing with natural stats. I don't know the most about those kinds of things. So as I said, pierce damage. Use them against smaller entities, especially monsters. Trolls are super weak to pierce damage because of their single entity nature. Beornings, support units of Lothlorien, the Singers, the Lore Masters of Enlargris, the Sorcerers of Angmar. That is what you want to be using pierce damage the most against. But now we come on to fire damage. Now, as you can imagine, fire does more than just, give yourself a nice flashy effect. Fire arrows, since BFME 2, has made it so enemies do a funny little jig while they're dying. They do the Denethor, as I call it, which is... Oh, it sounds so much worse when I actually say it out loud. They used to be able to set trees in the environment on fire, but they can still put Ents on... still burn Ents. But also, as we see with these explosive mines over here, they make the mines go kaboom. And I'll be doing that later as a fun little outro. Just a big kaboom, see if I crash the computer. That's not going to happen, but come on, let's see. I'll make it happen. But yeah, another thing about flame damage in particular is there's a separate damage type. So if the unit has less resistance to fire damage, it's going to take more fire. It's going to take more damage just from having the bonus fire damage. It's not like it's just giving it bonus damage of the same pierce damage type, which makes it god awful. Having flame damage makes it so all these archers that before you would never, ever, ever want them shooting at a building, you can now have them shoot a building and they'll deal damage. They'll do good damage with flame damage. And obviously, as I've said here, all these units here can get fire arrows. There are the Condoom archers that have ice arrows. And the only difference between ice arrows and fire arrows is the fact that they don't make things go kaboom. They don't set Ents on fire. They don't make people do a funny run around as they're burning to death. They're just ice. That's it. It's called the frost damage type. And there's so few entities in the game that have frost weakness and not also flame weakness that you would never really put 2 and 2 together. The only occasion I'd say would be probably the Balrog, dragons. That's it. Those are the only 2 instances I can think of where fire damage is less efficient than ice damage, and ice damage is less efficient than fire damage. I don't think there's any entities in the game that are strong against ice damage, but also not strong against fire damage, if you get what I mean. It's just a special little effect that they kept from Rise of the Witch King. If they gave them fire arrows, honestly, I wouldn't even bat an eye to it. But yeah, ice arrows are a special little thing that only the archers of Condoom can wield. Whereas, obviously, as I've mentioned here, all of these guys here, even the Rohirrim archers, can get flame damage through fire arrows. But let's talk about what the crossbowmen of the Uruk-hai get instead. They get these steel bolts, and that also leads in to what these Rohirrim archers' damage is at base. Their arrows can pierce heavy armor. What that means is, When a unit gets heavy armor, they take less damage from pierce damage. Just base pierce damage. However, this unit and this unit, when it gets the upgrade, already does bonus damage to heavy armor. So they don't take a damage debuff from enemy units having heavy armor. Think of it like how I mentioned before with the Ringler Veil Swordsman have chop damage, which does bonus damage to anything without armor. But when the enemy has armor, they deal less damage than basic slash damage. And that's when you want Uruk damage, which is damage that does bonus damage, which is damage which does more damage to units that have heavy armor. And the main thing about heavy armor is the fact that the unit gains more health. So that just means this unit is going to be doing more damage to entities with more health from heavy armor. Is basically what that means. If the unit does not have heavy armor, no real difference. You'll not even really notice a damage difference because, yeah, you can even say here, increase the damage dealt and ignores heavy armor. It does give a flat damage increase to make it. The damage type is actually called cavalry range damage. It's a funny little thing because it used to just be the Rohirrim archers and the Urukai crossbowmen that had this damage type. But then obviously they added the Mirkwood Elk Riders. They have cavalry range damage. And they're the only units that have this cavalry range damage. But obviously, as I already said, they can also get fire arrow damage to deal flame damage on top of their cavalry range damage. It's just a weird unit. Think of it as just another damage type on a damage type. Instead of having pierce damage, which is the worst, they have the second worst, which is only good against heavy armor. Or maybe you could actually say they are the worst. It's only good against heavy armor, and not good against units that don't have heavy armor. I don't know the exact math, but let's just say that is the worst damage type because it's designated to a single type of entity. The Urukai crossbowmen do get away with it though, because if you get a steelworkers, they can then do even more percentage damage for every shot, which makes them really, really good against anything, even monsters, dragons, anything. And it doesn't matter if it has a fire or cold resistance because they don't do fire or cold damage. It's not fire arrows, it's piercing bolts. Now, the last main important archer upgrade we need to talk about is Silverthorn arrows. The best, undeniably the best upgrade to archers in the game. Silverthorn arrows gives your units magic damage. And normally, magic damage is reserved for wizards, for example, like Gandalf. His abilities do mostly magic damage. There are some abilities like, for example, Saruman. His fireball, that's fire damage. It's a bit of magic damage, but it's mainly fire damage. But this gives the unit pierce damage on top of this new magic damage, which can get through nearly every single entity in the game. There's very little that is resistant to magic damage in particular. And also, it's the fun effect of making enemies fly away at death, which always makes it fun for me. And obviously, there's the Karaskalathon Guardians that start with Silverthorn arrows, and then get this Thorn Arrow attack, which just makes it so that their attacks do constant knockback. And obviously, Lorien Archers and Mirkwood Archers also get Silverthorn arrows. There's a reason why it's the most expensive, because it's the bloody strongest. It's insane. But then there's the second cousin of Silverthorn arrows, the gold-tipped arrows, which are slightly less expensive. In fact, I think they're the same cost as ordinary arrow upgrades. Yeah, 400 resources. But when you get gold-tipped arrows, with the Elves of Imladris, they get a secondary buff. They get the golden Eregion arrows if you have the blacksmith upgrade. And what this does is, the magic arrows increase the attack of allied units near the point of impact. So you're not buffing this unit's damage, you're buffing the rest of your army's damage by giving them these golden Eregion arrows. Which is, honestly, one of the just an amazing support tool. It's basically Galadriel on an archer unit that you can get multiple of constantly. Now, if, for example, you had an Isengard upgrade, like you get an upgrade, it does bonus damage. Or the dwarves, in fact, if you have full upgrades on a unit, it does more damage. I don't know if you'd be required to have this to get more damage for the troops. But since they don't have them, doesn't matter. Let's just say this is a secondary upgrade that makes them slightly not as good as Silverthorn arrows, because what you want with that bonus magic damage is to have as many entities as possible. Which is why these entity units of 10, or 10. Why I think there's only 12 there. No, it's 10 and 10. It's 10 and 10. 10 entities shooting these magical arrows is better than 5 entities shooting those arrows. Because again, what I talked about before is that every single entity has a health pool. And if that damage exceeds that health pool, where's the rest of the damage going? It's not going to someone else. It's going to the ether. It's going to the void. It doesn't exist. You're losing damage by shooting with these kind of archers against an orc, because there is no way these guys don't just one-shot an orc with those gold-tipped arrows. But obviously those golden Eregion arrows do make up for it. And then obviously there's also the bonus abilities of those archers. So we've almost got through all of the archer units. There's one more archer unit all the way over here, the Dol archers. Now, they don't get an upgrade like the Mordor archers of fire arrows. They instead start with poisoned weapons, which does poison damage. However, it's not... That doesn't mean their main damage type is poison damage. In fact, their damage type is still pierce. It's just that they also have a DOT effect over time. And I believe it's 3 health over 10 per second for 10 seconds. So that's 30 health taking away per shot on top of the pierce damage of the arrows. But then you've also got to take into account that that will reset every time they're hit by another poison source of the same type. So this poison will constantly reapply to the unit that they are shooting at. But it is also important to note that Mordor Orc archers, once they have fire arrows, do make these archers obsolete instantly. And I mean instantly. The only thing that this unit has over their basic Orc archer counterparts, I'm not going to keep going back and forth, that's across the entire screen, is the fact that they got that poison. It's not, like it says on here, their weapons cause more than twice as much damage as ordinary orcs. That is a half-truth. What the actual truth is that they just do more damage over time because of the poison. However, the poison doesn't constantly, stack up to, 3 stacks and it's then doing 9 damage per second. It's just always 3 damage per second for as long as the unit is poisoned. And obviously, the time will always reset when it is hit again. So if it goes down to 5 seconds on the timer before they get shot again, it goes back to 10 seconds. So they've taken 15 damage and they're going to take another 30 after that. That is guaranteed. And then if it happens again, it's going to keep happening again and again and again. And obviously that is a constantly restacking damage. So honestly, Dol archers are probably the best Dol units in the early game. After which, you should never make Dol units, because though the poison is a cool added effect, fire arrows are better, armor and tougher orcs are better, so Minas Morgul orcs are better. I'm sorry, Dol orcs, you just can't. I'm slapping you hard with the truth, but it's the truth. Those hats are ridiculous. What are you wearing on your heads? That's an orc helmet. I don't know what that is. And why has this guy got an aristocrat hat? Oh, I'm just roasting them for no reason. Okay, that is all of the basic ranged units. Obviously, there's the Moria Orcs that have the poison effect as well. Exactly the same thing, except it's a selected DOT, not a permanent, always hitting DOT. Then there's the actual Goblin Archers that, if there's enough of them, they do more damage. There's the Blackroot Vale Archers of Gondor. There's the what were archers? There's the crossbowmen of the Iron Hills. What other basic range units I can get fire arrows are there? There's... I think that's all of them. Oh no, Minas Morgul archers. There we go. That's the other orc archer type. And then other than that, I don't think there's any other units I can get fire arrows that I haven't already shown here. Obviously, there's the Silverthorn arrows, there's the Elk Riders. I missed them out because I can't show everything all in one video, unfortunately, without doing a bunch of different cuts. But now we come to the exotic damage types. So, as I said before, all those units we've talked about either did pierce damage or cavalry range damage for the cavalry to start with. But now we have the exotic types. We have, firstly, the axe throwers of both Erebor and of Rudour. So Angmar and the dwarves of Erebor have, instead of pierce damage on their main ranged unit, they have slash damage. Which, if for those that don't know what slash damage is the damage type that these guys have. That's right. Basic Gondor soldiers have the same damage type as axe throwers. So what does that mean? That means that in the early game, or at any point in the game, any slash damage type is more effective than pierce damage by base. But what is the ultimate kicker is the fact that these are the best ranged units to duel other ranged units. There's also the Wildman axe throwers. I forgot about them from Dunland. But again, can't show everything. But yeah, so Rudour axe throwers and Erebor axe throwers with their slash damage actually do more damage to every single one of those units at this current level at basic tier with just pierce damage versus slash damage. If this unit was to fight a say a Filion Ranger unit, an elite tier unit with more health than this unit, I can almost guarantee this unit will destroy those archers before they even get the chance. Because also, every single ranged unit has their own armor type called Edain Basic Archer or Elite Archer armor. And that armor takes more damage from slash than most other damage types. So yeah, axe throwers, really, really bloody good. And then you can also get the boost from the Forge Blades for the Erebor axe throwers, which gives them bonus damage against all other infantry. So that means they could probably kill even the heroic units of Lothlorien on their own one-on-one with full upgrades. And if they don't have heavy armor, these cutting axes, that extra shiny effect when they're shot now, just means to do bonus damage to things without heavy armor. So chop damage is now given. And chop damage, as I've already said, is one of the most busted damage types in the game, and is why it is one of the rarest to find in the game. So next up is the Spearmen. This also includes the Ered Mithrin spear throwers. So quite literally, they're Spearmen. But what they decided, let's not hold these spears and jab at the cavalry coming at us. Let's in fact throw them full at that cavalry unit. When a ranged unit like this exists, it deletes other cavalry without even breaking a sweat. However, it does way, way, way less damage to, you guessed it, basic soldiers. If they have a sword and board set up, this unit does less damage than pierce damage users, because their damage type is not meant to combat against other basic melee infantry. Their mighty spears do knock things down though for the yeoman spear throwers, and the Ered Mithrin spear throwers I think get an activated version of the mighty spears. But they also, as you can imagine, do more damage to cavalry and monsters by having that specialist damage type. So they are, again, the anti-cav ranged units. If you want to stop cavalry, get the spear throwers for Rohan or for the Iron Hills. And also you can get the Forged Blades upgrades. which it doesn't specify what that upgrade does. Increase the damage done by melee weapons. Doesn't really specify what it is. But if we go back to here, we can see pikemen do additional damage against cavalry and monsters. So if we take that text literal, that would mean that this unit will do more damage to cavalry and monsters with the Forge Blade upgrade. It's still specialist damage, it's just more of it. Similar to the Axe Throws, where it's slash damage, but it's more of it, and it does more damage to a certain type. But it also means it will do no bonus damage against, say, again, another melee infantry unit. Now we come to perhaps the most exotic damage type of them all. Siege damage. The Rohan Pitch Throwers. Rohan has the most unique damage types of their ranged units. We've got Pierce, Cavalry Ranged, Specialist, and now Siege. With a radius, in fact. This is probably one of the strongest base ranged units in the game. Because they can do big damage to structures from the get-go. They're as cheap as yeoman archers. There's just less of them. They don't have great range, which, as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, sometimes does not matter, because that means they're protected by your infantry. If a cavalry charge starts coming in, they're more protected from those pesky cavalry charges if they've got pikemen sitting right next to them. They can also get heavy armor and banner carriers, but they can't upgrade their damage type. They can only stick out what they've got. So they're not going to get stronger, but they are still pretty damn strong to start with. Because again, big damage against buildings, big damage against units, big damage all around. Because siege damage is a inherently good damage type. It's why it's normally restricted to only siege units. Because it's meant to be used against buildings, not against everything. But we've seen how a trebuchet, when it hits something square in the face, will probably kill any entity in the game. With very few exceptions. But it also has the AoE effect, where it hits things in that area. So, say for example, a single pitch was being thrown at this middle pitch thrower here. It would probably also splash to the one behind it and the ones to the side of it. But it wouldn't hit the ones that were diagonal to it, because it's just a slightly longer range. So 1, 2, 3, 4 entities are being hit by a single AoE skill shot. And as I've said already, every single entity that is shot at in a unit of like 15 entities is random. You don't choose who you're attacking out of those 15 entities. You just have to throw it and hope for the best. Or shoot it and hope for the best for most units. But with these guys, you get a bit more worth. They're definitely really good against a blob faction like Mordor. Like, for example, here, this guy here, if he got hit by a pitch, he'd be hitting 4 other entities in his unit, which would, if it happened, let's say 4 times, would kill him, and would probably kill a few more of these as well. I think a single pitch thrower unit could actually. I'm going to test this. I'm actually going to show you. I'm actually going to do a test because I've not done it this video yet. So I was thinking of doing it, but then I just wanted to just talk because I'm tired. Let's move all these guys back. We've done all we need to talk about. Now let's show and tell. So, reverse convert. Let's make sure these are closer so they don't just get shot down straight away. Look at that range first. That's very small range, but look at that damage. Half the unit's already dead. And all it takes is 4 pitches to kill a orc from an AoE effect. And look at that. That orc unit did take a lot of the pitch throwers out, but the pitch throw unit took out that entire orc unit. Now imagine if there was more than just that one unit in that blob. That'd be more than one unit dead in half the time, because their AoE damage is incredible. Obviously, as I said before, no range unit has this AoE effect other than Siege. So that fact alone makes this unit one of the best blob killers in the game, as I already stated. But not good against factions like Rivendell, where they have large hit pools, less entities, so the splash is not doing as well, and they can just rub off the damage anyway because it's very little damage to begin with. I'd say it was 2 hits from a pitch to kill an orc, but then it took that 4 AoE splashes to kill an orc after that. Whereas every single one of these elves could kill 3 orcs with 1 shot if the damage would ricochet, for example. That's a good thing. If they could do ricochet shots, they could probably kill 3 orcs in 1 shot each. But if we were to do this 1v1 here, if I were to do that 1v1, this unit would lose. And in fact, let's prove it. So I just want to prove this. I'm fairly certain this orc unit will beat that elf unit. If they shoot. I think they can actually beat it, because look at that. Every single shot, some of those shots are colliding on a single entity. Okay, yeah, no, they don't stand a chance. They didn't stand a chance. But some of those shots weren't always individual. There were sometimes 2 shots hitting a single entity. And again, like I said, that bonus damage is now gone. That damage no longer exists. They wasted a shot. They wasted those seconds of shooting, trying to do something. But yeah, you can see the damage that those elves took from that single unit of Doggle archers. To say this unit costs, what, 600? 600, and the Doggle archers cost 300. So if I had 2 units of archers against this one, this unit would definitely die. But one-on-one, you could see it was pretty... I'd say that's more than a third of their health gone from a really cheap unit. And it was a one-on-one as well, which did make it a bit of an unfair fight because of the damage these guys can do. But yeah, I was pretty sure if all 5 of those hit the same target every single time, they would have lost. But that is, again, a random thing. You can't choose what every single archer is going to shoot at. It's not that kind of game. It's done by a random number generator. Unless you're shooting a single entity like a troll. Then it's going to hit 5 arrows, the same target, straight away, massive damage, will always kill it in probably 1 or 2 volleys before it even gets close. And that's what makes Lothlorien the best archer faction, because Silverthorn arrows and all those entities shooting a single target, really good. But also more entities, but just more overall more damage because it's being split up more. And that is everything I want to talk about. Now let's go out with a boom, shall we? We'll have the Aphelion Rangers do the deed, unless the pitch throwers can. Go on, Gondor soldiers, you're coming in too. Gotta have a big bang to finish it off. Place them down. This might crash the game. Hopefully not crash the video, because I really want to keep this. Where is it? If I make those mines hostile, can I shoot them with the pit throwers then? I wonder. The Aphelion Rangers can currently shoot them. But can anything else shoot them if I reverse convert them? Yeah, everything else can now shoot at them. Can the pitch throwers shoot at them? They can. Okay, for science and for YOLOs, this isn't fire damage, so this shouldn't work. But let's see. Oh, we're going to end with a boom. Boom! It worked! I hope you've all enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next one. I hope you learned something. See ya!